evening, gamers, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Night Road by one Carl Marquis. I won't waste too much of your time with the same preamble I did the last few times, but I will do a brief recap from as best as my memory shall allow. The last time we were together, we screwed up royally, but hey, what can I say? Can only take these things in stride and keep going and hoping that the prince doesn't demand our head on a pike. We visited the Bruja Pratermaster and his group of social outcasts at St. Basil's Hospital the last time we were together. We delivered the message just like Prince Leto wanted, but we were not able to save them because I got a little, not necessarily trigger happy. The guards themselves were trigger happy though. I messed it up effectively, and the guards decided to shoot at me and shoot through a crowd in a hospital. Very, very professional of them. Teddy escaped. He wasn't able to smooth talk his way out of that, but he did manage to escape. And the other thing we did last episode was we visited his sire, one NVIDIA call at her research laboratory, where we delivered the message of the other Tremere's destruction. We're Tremere as well, if you don't remember that. We delivered the message of the other Tremere's destruction, and she tried to get us to effectively lie to the prince. Now, Teddy, he is about as much of a Camarilla bootlicker as you can get, right? If it means that he gets to survive another night, he'll lick as many boots as he needs to. He also happens to have a quick tongue, so hey, there you go. Or sharp tongue is the proper word to use there. While there, we met up with one Vonnie, a friend from his time alive, and we managed to escape the facility. We weren't able to destroy it, but we did escape, and we convinced Vonnie to seek out better means of employment, so to speak. Where we start off today, I'm going to visit Vonnie in her laboratory. I'm very excited to see where that leads, but hey, we can all experience that together, right? I will also say, as you can see here, Alexander provides you with blood he diverted from a free clinic that treats immigrants and refugees. You're soon sated. Oh goodness, I didn't put the song on repeat. My apologies for that. But yeah, I fed off screen is really what I'm saying. I'm going to go meet Vonnie now. Vonnie, like her former employer, has found that the best way to get ahead in science is to grab a few cardboard boxes full of research and set up shop somewhere else. Her laboratory is in a bleak little adobe strip mall between a boarded-up UPS store and a Supercuts. A minuscule sign reads "Anand Biomedical," Anand Biomedical. You scan the parking lot and see only a few late-night wanderers, a tow truck rolling down the street, a few crows fighting over garbage in an alley. You ring the bell. Vonnie looks ashen when she opens the door, though. She makes herself smile. She's wearing a coffee-stained UCLA sweatshirt and yoga pants. Her curly black hair is pulled back in a frayed ponytail. One hand is bandaged. "Teddy," she says, "come in and close the door." Boxes of paperwork fill the front office. A meeting room holds a centrifuge, sorry, I'm gotten distracted. Okay. A meeting room holds a centrifuge, a homogenizer, and an autoclave, standard biomedical equipment. Vonnie's office is full of servers running computations. She beckons you to sit, then realizes that there are no chairs. A beaker of cold coffee on her desk has a pencil in it. She flicks the pencil away and drains the entire beaker, then looks you in your eyes. "I need your help," she says. "I think I'm cursed." I think Dr. Call sent her to kill me," Vonnie says. Not because I'm important or anything, just to clean up loose ends." "Who?" you ask. "Giselle," Vonnie says. "Dr. Cole's witch. Giselle tried to destroy her last year, and Dr. Cole, she did something to her, made her serve, and now she's working as Cole's assassin. It started with these little things. A secretary I hired stole from me and disappeared. There was a fire, but now there are these birds, ravens. They keep watching me, and when I went to my car yesterday, they swarmed me." She holds up her bandaged hand. you just get in touch with NVIDIA and give back what you stole? She has a temper, but she's not a vengeful person. I've tried, Bonnie says, but Dr. Call is packaging up KXG, and I can't get through. And I think Giselle's acting on her own. You have to help me stop her, Teddy, and I can offer something in return. I know how to work with Vitae. She hesitates around that last word, like she's never said it out loud before. In fact, I needed to continue my research. I'm interested in becoming your retainer. You consider what to say, though you're not willing to commit yet. Do you understand what you're asking? You saw what NVIDIA did to Giselle, right? Bonnie shakes her head like a teacher explaining things to a slow student. NVIDIA has the same mannerism. Giselle was a witch who tried to destroy Dr. Call. What's it called? The blood bond warped her powers and drove her mad. That's how Dr. Call explained it. I'm entering into this relationship willingly, and I have no powers to warp. You're not entirely sure it works that way, but Bonnie seems eager. Okay. I'll help you stop Giselle. Let's get to work. Whatever I do, it'll take brains to outsmart a witch. Bonnie brightens and assumes the posture of a senior lecturer, though she's half your age. I see this as a two-step process, the researcher declaims. First, we need to start to research Giselle and learn exactly what she can throw at us. Second, we need to find a way to stop her attacks, the birds' accidents, and maybe even stop her outright. She hands you a ledger. I've logged every unusual event over the past few weeks, but while I'm familiar with the blood sorcery of Clan Tremere, Giselle isn't a vampire. She's doing something else. Academic research might turn up more information we can use. Or we could try delving into the local occult scene. They're a creepy and unsavory bunch, but with enough patience we might be able to get them to talk to us. You see one final possibility. You could watch those ravens. They don't seem to bother you, but if you keep your eyes open, you might be able to follow them back to wherever they come from. Let's see. Bonnie and I will investigate the local occult underground and learn more about Giselle's powers and weaknesses. It'll take great intelligence to understand these recluses. Actually, my knowledge of sorcery might be much more helpful here. So we conduct academic research on what sorts of techniques Giselle might use. My knowledge of sorcery will help here. You return to Corboreus's books to conduct your research. The proprietor regards Bonnie with undisguised loathing, but you sweep past him and get the researcher installed in the back room. And then you start gathering books, and more books, until Bonnie is nothing but a puff of black hair hidden behind ancient tomes in a dozen languages. Your research takes all night, and then all the next night, but you slowly piece together what you're facing. Her witchcraft, or whatever you want to call it, is far more flexible and dynamic than your own. In fact, your own clan has spent centuries trying to recapture that creative spark, the creative spark that lies in the heart of the human magic, without success. If Giselle has half the power of these human mages you read about, she can command beasts and the elements, see the past and the future, and warp fate itself with nothing but ferocious will and a few words of power. But she's not invincible. Her powers are flexible but also fragile, contingent upon iron willpower, bordering on delusion, and, it seems, a kind of willing suspension of disbelief even among her victims. Ideological hostility, inconsistencies with her own belief system, even an incompatible environment can dampen her powers. No wonder she was so weak at KXG, Bonnie says. It was more than her blood bond driving her mad and Dr. Cole exploiting her. Witches don't belong in laboratories. Maybe we can work with that. Your dreams that day are full of runes and the skulls of animals. You awake the moment the sun crosses the horizon and peer out the nearest window. The ravens are waiting for you. They don't challenge you as you walk to your Integra, but you waste no time driving to Bonnie's lab. When you ring the doorbell, she doesn't buzz you in for a full minute. The ravens slowly accumulate outside. You get inside and make sure that the door is locked. There's a dead cat on the floor of the front office. Its brains haven't been bashed out. You find Bonnie in the unisex bathroom, stripped to her brawn underwear, cleaning scratches on her shoulder with shaking hands. When she sees you and you see her blood, she slams and locks the door. "They're not deep," Bonnie says, "and the dogs couldn't get in." A minute later, "We're ending this tonight, Teddy." She opens the door. This time she's dressed in a frayed black sweater and jeans. Her face is the color of old ashes, and her lips are like chalk. She's lost a lot of blood, but she's standing. She puts on a pot of coffee and sits drinking for a few minutes as you glance outside. The ravens are still there. Finally, she says, I saw her outside. She left, but she'll be back. When the moon rises, for some reason, I know she'll be back when the moon rises. I've had a lot of time to think. I have a few ideas. We can make Giselle work for it, Bonnie says, sipping from the oversized mug of black coffee. She's strongest away from the city, I think, but if we get out into the desert, well, I bet you have a better car. That's true, but it wouldn't be about driving, it'd be about desert survival. She's always keeping one step ahead of Giselle. A tough vehicle will help, but only a little. Or we could stay here and lay some traps. This laboratory is full of chemicals, and I used to mess around with mechanical engineering at UCLA. Can we home alone a witch until she goes away? Maybe, though it'd take both manual dexterity and technical acumen, and it might backfire painfully. There's one final possibility. We know that Giselle was weakest at Kiowa xenogenetics, and there were some areas she completely avoided. Which ones, you ask? I don't know. She handled security. I was her glorified secretary, but what if there are some, I don't know, some scientific processes that disrupt her power? Like praying the rosary to make a vampire flee, you ask? Does that work? No. Still, if Giselle's witchcraft really is vulnerable to jamming, maybe you can use Vonnie's records from KXG and your own scientific acumen to analyze what weakens her. And you have one final trick up your sleeve. Giselle's magic might be more flexible than your own, but you'd pit the power of your blood against her witchcraft any night. You know geometric rites to disrupt magic, forbidden words to banish spirits and banes, and wards to bar anything that crawls on the earth or flies through the air. Proving your arcane superiority would require iron will and supernatural lore, but it might force her to back down. Let's go. Nothing but hubris. I climb onto the roof where I'll test my intellect and sorcery against her own. Are you sure about this? Bonnie asks as you check your Kindle grimoire and your bag of notes. She's dangerous, Teddy. She doesn't have to see you to tell you apart. Come with me and don't leave the circle, you tell Bonnie. You climb up onto the roof and look out on the sprawl of Tuscan with the mountains rising to the north and begin preparations. Your sorcery combines Latin and Greek traditions with medieval Arabic rites and whatever else you've gotten your hands on, but more than anything it relies on the blood. You open your wrists and let the vitae flow down through your fingers and spread across the across the rooftops, forming patterns of intricate geometrical complexity, but flawed patterns, triangles not quite equilateral, and crooked stars, grids that do not meet magic, at least to Greek and Arabic rites you've studied, relies on mathematical perfection and rigid control. To recreate them flawed and incomplete is to break their power and surround yourself and Vonnie with a shield against their influence. Vonnie remains silent in the middle of the circle where she'll be safest, assuming this works, assuming her powers follow the same principles. A silver moon crosses the eastern horizon. Reality feels slimy, a state of chaos and possibility, like anything could happen. You felt it when the old Prince of Tuscan fell, but you knew what it portended then and why it was happening. Now it's just raw potential, as if everything solid were ready to crumble and float up to the stars, or tumble into the center of creation. Teddy! Giselle stands 20 yards away. On the rooftop of the hair salon, ravens and bats blot out the stars. 2 coyotes flank her. If Dr. Cole wants me so badly, why didn't she come herself? Vonnie shouts at the witch. Because you're not that important, Giselle says. You finished your crooked patterns and air shimmers. Giselle wastes no more time in banter. She slashes at her wrist with a silver knife, and bats and ravens descend upon you, but your vitae sizzles, and so do they, burning away in the midair and falling with sickening little patters. Enough, Giselle says, cutting an elaborate rune into her hand. She glances at the coyotes, who ripple a little bit with power you don't understand. Shatter that static defense. Destroy them both. The coyotes leap jaws first, impossibly fast. Bonnie screams and you grab to her to prevent her from leaving your circle. You've been in a lot of car accidents. You've seen flesh hit a windshield at 70 miles an hour. That's exactly what happens to the coyotes. They splatter off of your occult defense, dying so quickly that they can't even cry out, and tumble to the parking lot, broken. Giselle roars and raises her bloody hands in a third working. Her body starts to twist, and then she screams and falls to one knee as steam pours out of her nose and mouth. No! Giselle screams. I just need... Give me this! He's just a walking corpse! She shouts something else in a language you don't know. Maybe Old Norse. But the gods do not answer. This isn't over, Giselle screams. Yes, it is. Tell Call not to bother me again. Giselle implores the gods or something else one last time, but they are silent. Let's see. Hmm. My only concern is for Vonnie. I've got to make sure that she's okay. Vonnie is safe behind you, though her face is a mask of fear. Fear of death, and a deeper, more primal fear of whatever horrible power Giselle wields in service to her mistress. Seeing what interests you, Giselle faints towards the researcher, but you can almost feel how much this struggle has cost her. She sacrificed parts of herself you, as a vampire, probably don't even have anymore. She's lost. She knows it. The witch hisses at you one last time, then suddenly she's gone. You and Vonnie remain on the rooftop until a few minutes before sunrise, waiting for reality to return to normal. It takes a long, long time for the world to make sense again, but Giselle does not return. You've won. My offer stands, Bonnie says a few hours later. She's showered and dressed in a light gray sweater and a black skirt rather. Eyeliner makes it less obvious that she's been awake for night after night. I don't plan to end up like Giselle, Bonnie says, and I'm tired of experimenting with Vitae under someone else's direction in little labeled jars. I want to feel it. It's not just moved around in test tubes. And you could perhaps use someone who knows their way around the scientific and academic world. So I propose a partnership. Letting Bonnie all the way into your world will certainly skirt the boundaries of the Masquerade. On the other hand, not only will she be valuable in her own right, her research will hone your understanding of the blood. Let's see. I need her as a research assistant and servitor. I open my veins. Drink. You're starting to get worried. The masquerade is growing thin around you. Any more mistakes and you fear that hunters will find you. And when they do, they will strike without mercy. Bonnie takes a moment to tie her hair back, then kneels. She drinks eagerly, then rises, looking a bit dazed. I need to study this, she says. I'm going to get to work on some analysis, but when you need me, I'll be ready. And with that, gamers, we have ourselves our own retainer, our own ghoul. I'm going to spend the night investigating local news services, looking for a cheap and effective way to spread misinformation to get those pesky little hunters off my back. Your initial inquiries go well, since the local camera has a lock on KOLD, a local TV news station, and an extensive control over what's left of the local print news. You end up in the parking lot outside a fundraising gala, talking to one of the old Prince of Tuscan's chowder, and she recommends radio news. While Melphany Chen of Mel and Midnight considers herself a crusading investigative journalist, the other local gossip news fixture, Harry the Gila Monster Jimenez, will spout any old nonsense for a modest consideration, as long as the news article incorporates a lot of H's and silent G's and J's. That's his gimmick. The local Camarillas seem to like you right now, but so the Blue Blood even goes out of her way to smooth your introduction to the Gila Monster. You estimate that between your current good relationship with the Ivory Tower and your own excellent talent for deception, planting these false stories will run you about $400 if you act tonight. But if you go through with it, hunters will be thrown off the scent and you'll be in the clear. Unless you slip up again, of course. I talked to Harry the Gila Monster Jimenez about planting a series of false stories to shore up the masquerade around me, which cost around $400. You set up a meeting with the Gila Monster at a Burger King and explain your needs. The misdirections you're spreading are fairly interesting, so he doesn't ask too many questions, though of course he wants to get paid. You slide him a manila envelope that contains both the $400 and the lies you want him to spread. He counts it under the table and says, "I'm your man, see you on the airwaves." Over the next few nights, the suggestive stories the Gila Monster will broadcast. You get hunters all over Arizona running around chasing non-existent threats, wasting their time on leads that go nowhere, and, if you're really lucky, bumping into each other and thinking that different hunter cells work for the vampires. That should protect you as long as you can keep a low profile from here on out. We're just going to go check on our... See, look at that. We're back down to one masquerade violation. We are going to feed and then go check how much money we have, if I can do that. I don't remember if I can. I think I can. I have that much money. Oh, no, actually this much money. I have $420 left. How fun. Alright, we did all of our leveling up last time. So I'm going to go pick up the parcel for Ellen Olive Krona and take it to Camp Scheffler. Chapter 6, Camp Shuffler. Tucson, Arizona, night of November 22nd. Sunrise is at 6:59 a.m. You place a call to a payphone to Anand Biomedical, and Vani meets you a few minutes later at a diner not far from the university. I'll make sure my papers are in order, Vani says, obviously troubled. After you explain where you'll be going, I mean, is it safe, Teddy? You shrug. Nothing you do is ever safe. I'll try to get there before you do, she says. I have some government contacts. I might even be able to get inside before you do. There's no traffic in Tucson that evening as you drive to the Viper and drive to a halt outside. Once again, Riga watches you, and once again, a flunky runs up to your car. He hands you a USB on a lanyard, no lockbox this time. No Prince Leteau this time. Excuse me, I had to burp there. I don't know if it picked up on the mic. I do apologize for that. No Prince Leteau this time either. The flunky also makes sure that you have your typewritten sheet of directions and false government IDs. Only delivered to Elaine Olive Corona, he says. You're at the edge of town when you realize that you've done 2 jobs for Prince Leteau and you're getting low on supplies. Microfiber towels, zip ties, line for clinching a tarp shut if you're stuck out in the sun, that kind of thing. Fortunately, it's still early, so you roll into an AutoZone across from a convenience store where you can stock up. You pass the payphone there and check it to make sure that it still works. You know every payphone in Tucson. You get a dial tone. Good. You walk inside. And you instantly know that you're being watched. I made her fix my car. If someone wants to come at me while I'm buying Armor All, fine. But I need Armor All. You keep browsing and pick out what you need. You can definitely see people following you in the anti-theft mirrors, but you're not going to neglect your Integra just because people want to destroy you. People always want to destroy you. You pay. The cashier watches you with an expression of barely controlled terror. Behind you is a woman the size of 2 big men. You can tell because she's got 2 big men behind her. All 3 wear 2 tight black suits. Good evening, Teddy, the woman says. You've seen her before, and this time you memorize her features. White, middle-aged, graying brown hair and a French braid. Really huge. My name is Agent Donati with the Federal Bureau of Investigations. I'd like to ask you a few questions. The nicest smile I can manage. Of course, Agent Donati. How can I help you? She doesn't smile. You can help me bring down Leteau Kaminsky, she says. Never heard of him. I'm not telling a hunter anything about the Camarilla. I've been doing this for longer than you know, and still, I don't have a lot of time, Agent Donati says, so I'll be quick. Oh, well, do you want to check your watch? You fight the urge. Leteau Kaminsky is the head of a crime syndicate that stretches across most of Arizona. His organization is involved with human trafficking, organ legging, racketeering, organized auto theft, and fraud, so long-running and extensive that in order to encompass its full extent, I had to track down copies from the French Suerte and the Spanish civil and Turkish translations from the Ottoman Empire. Do you understand what I mean? Do you understand how long this has been going on? She sounds tired. Then her eyes narrow as more customers arrive. One watches you suspiciously from beneath a low-slung black cap. Hunter, investigator, whoever he is, this is a problem. Donati wants answers, but you don't want to say anything too revealing. The Masquerade is strained enough around Tucson without one more curious citizen tipping over into active supernatural sleuth. This Kaminsky guy must be really old. It shouldn't be hard to arrest an old guy. I played dumb, lying and manipulating Donati into telling me useful information I can use. Even as you chatter amiably and waste Donati's time, you lead the agents away from the customers so they don't overhear anything. Your innate chatter seems to convince the other Second Inquisition agents that you're just some low-level chump, though you doubt Agent Donati is entirely convinced. Agent Donati tries to hand you a card, but you don't take it, so she tucks it into the pocket of your shell jacket. Contact us if you ever want to survive what's coming, she says, then signals for her goons, and they leave, never taking their eyes off you. You check the card. The United States Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Samantha Donati, Special Affairs Division. There's a physical address, an email address, and 2 phone numbers. When you glance up again, her dark blue Ford Fairline is rolling out of the parking lot. The cashier took off, so you just grab what you need and head back to your Integra. Riga watches you from the roof of the AutoZone as you leave. It's a 7-hour drive to the big nothing on the map between Texas and Chihuahua. Assuming this information is accurate, that means you can get there in one night and be back the next. You've checked where you can stay on the way if you refuse shelter. There are a few hotels nearby, but you're going to be heading right out of the desert, and you don't you hope you don't have to spend a day wrapped in a body bag. It's bad for the nerves. Security is tight around Camp Scheffler. You're followed once you turn off the main road. First by the Texas Highway Patrol, then by some Patriot/militia group in a Chevy Tahoe, flying Gadsden and Blue Lives Matter flags. They only peel off when you reach the outer periphery of the camp. High fences topped with razor wire, guarded by men in masks and goggles. The face masks look like respirators, and they're all painted in the same way, like a great cat's mandibles. Though everyone seems to have respirators and at least one's cat skull logo, weapon and other equipment and heterogeneous and irregular. Yeah, okay. From their mannerisms, you detect a mix of competent ex-military police/security personnel and untrained fringe militia types. The gate guard looks from your government ID to your very much non-government Integra, shrugs, and waves you around to the parking lot. You spot a familiar face as you look in the parking lot. Who is that man? You slow down, trying to see his face clearly under the black ball cap, and then you suddenly remember. The abandoned filing station, the migrant family, the Nosferatu White. That man barely survived the attack. You're sure it's the same guy, and here he is, hundreds of miles away, with the stride of someone packing a .35 357 Magnum under his windbreaker. A cluster of civilian contractors wanders between you and the man, and just like that, he's gone. Throughout history, certain kinds of prisons have served as neutral meeting spaces and feeding grounds for the kindred. Insane asylums, concentration camps, and gulags have drawn vampires with the promise of easy blood and relative security. Olive Krona, shadow director of the Camp Scheffler and member of Clan Ventru, has hidden this place from regular inspection and allowed it to fester and grow ripe. You roll past open air holding pens where prisoners sit wrapped in reflective plastic blankets, watching your Integra with expressions of hopeless despair. Guards patrol with rifles or dogs. As you finish your circuit and park, still scanning for the man you remember, you watch some kind of shift change amongst the prisoners. They're being put to work in a long, low Quonset huts. The wind carries the stink of unwashed and unhealthy bodies, and this is autumn. You wonder how they don't all boil in the summer. Then you step out of the car. A tall, dark figure of indeterminate gender in a dark suit approaches you and says, Give me the USB. Good evening. Could I have your name and position in the organization? They sneer. I'm Neelay, and I'm the person that Olive Krona sends when she needs a job done right, not you. So give me the effing USB, so give me the effing USB and get out of here. Let's see. This goon doesn't want to cause a scene. I persuade them into backing down. Why don't you just take me to Olive Krona and we can deliver the USB together? They mull over that possibility and then say, fine, let's go. They lead you to a bright red Quonset hut guarded by a man and a woman who are also dressed in dark suits. The woman is small and tough looking. The man is big and round like a bouncer, and even more tough looking. I'm sorry, Neelay, the woman tells your escort, but Olive Krona can't be disturbed. This is a courier from Tuscan, Neelay says. The woman shifts uncomfortably. I know that, but... Is that you, Neelay? That must be Olive Krona. She's inside. Is Teddy there? It doesn't matter. I don't have to wait. Just give him a place to stay for the night. Tomorrow night, I'm busy. The four of you share what the F looks as... it's obvious no one knows what's going on. Then Neelay says, I'll find a place for you to stay, Teddy. Just don't wander too far. You've done your job, so you wander right back to your car. Someone stuck a boot on it. Great. Looks like you're staying. There you are. It's Vonnie. She's dressed like a Red Cross medical technician, complete with hazmat suit with a lanyard clipped to the front. She tosses you a lanyard of your own. A guy my roommate used to date is a state senator now, she says. He got me in, but I don't know how long either of us can stay here. Your retainer looks around, her expression bleak. I got us this place to stay, too. She shows you a private trailer, complete with shower. Trapped, but not exactly a prisoner, you let Vonnie show you around the mortal areas of the complex before diving deeper into what the kindred have set up. The camp is laid out like an open prison, with temporary Quonset huts serving as separate holding pens for men, women, and children. Due to overcrowding, an overflow pen topped with razor wire holds several hundred more people. Right up next to that pen is a place called Millicent's, a kind of Rick's Cafe Americaine for kindred, where the vessels are so plentiful it's almost free. After using your IDs to pass to the security checkpoints, you poke your head inside Millicent's and count not just the wheel-heeled Camarilla types, but also anarchs of all kinds lounging amongst the dazed-looking blood dolls, among the low couches and glittering lamps that establish a sort of 1920s French Allegra and slash 1990s Pier 1 store style to the place. That was a mouthful. You're pretty sure the biker gang is made up of gangrels, since there are two wolves amongst the Outlanders. You also spot some creepy-looking figures in boiler suits that you've heard about but never met. Russian exiles, mostly rabble if the stories you've heard are to be believed. You listen in on some conversations and learn the names of a few lunatics, sewer rats, and clanless hangers-on that the new, more aristocratic Camarilla wouldn't normally tolerate. Meemaw. Millicent herself is small, frail, and elderly, a peculiar choice for the embraced by most standards. She looks like a librarian from a black and white movie. But it sounds like everyone is welcome to grab a drink at Millicent's. How careful is Olive Crone at being here? Is this place just a massive masquerade breach, or does she run a clean operation? Millicent glances up when you pass through security and enter her bar, then returns to her work. Right now, she's taking notes, even as a hulking vampire shares a hollow-eyed vessel with a hard-looking Bruja in a Soviet captain's uniform. Millicent looks well-run and secure, but God only knows what the rest of the kindred here get up to. The pit outside is in particular is a mess. It's not mainly masquerade violations or such that you fear, but the pit is such an obvious vector for disease and mortal violence that it might draw some outside attention. And even as you watch, you notice that the Soviet kindred is using a needle to steal blood. Of what use? It's blood measured in cubic centimeters. Those look like biomedical samples. Interesting. Maybe you should bring that sort of thing to Olive Cone's attention. You head back outside to where Bonnie is waiting and check the mortal guards. They're a truly bewildering mix. Some are actual police, state police, or from nearby municipalities. Others give every indication of belonging to the armed forces, from their kit to the way they carry themselves. Others are just fringe militia types, citizens, patrols, patriot groups, even bikers, loaded up with ammunition and given those cat skull masks. You see men and women in suits. Some of them are wearing windbreakers or lanyards that indicate that they're with ICE or Border Patrol, the FBI, or even the ATF. Food at your fingertips, a loyal army of soldiers, in a situation that blends perfectly into the chaos and carnage mortals have wrought on one another. Elena Overcrawlin has built herself a private paradise here for vampires. Everyone else is in hell. You constantly see Nile and lesser underlings running back and forth on errands to maintain the place. There's her sneaker net, Data, that felt like a, never mind. Data being physically carried from place to place, just like what you do. Data is flowing everywhere here, and it has to be coming from a central source. If you could get your hands on all that blood traffic data, who knows what Julian could do with it? Try and take the idea away. Prince Leto trusts you to make deliveries and not to steal Camarilla data. What do you think I should do here, Vonnie? If we must stay, Vonnie says, trying to make her distaste known, my recommendation is to seek knowledge in alliances. Who controls what here? Are we in any danger from any of the local factions? This may look like a paradise by certain crude standards, but there's no such thing. The discovery of a plentiful resource means that either people show up to extract the resource until it's rare again, or draconian measures are established to prevent easy access. That rule applies to oil, fish, blood, anything. We need to figure out which one applies here and how to stay safe. I'm gonna check my hunger, which is at 2. I'm gonna go to Millicent's and get a vessel. That's easy. Yeah. You head to Millicent's and enjoy a vessel with the other kindred. Cool. The next evening, you head right for Olive Cone's office, but the Red Tent is locked down and guarded by that Malinois. As you make plans for the evening, a hideous Nosferatu in rather clothes appears. She introduces herself as Lenora, a facilitator among the different anarch groups that feed in Camp Shelf. If you're looking to aid the anarchs here, she's willing to help. She leaves her contact information as well as a shoebox full of camp records as a sign of good faith. These are copies of of Olive Krona's contacts in the blood trade. This is exactly the sort of hard data you can use. I suppose we're stuck here for a few more nights, Vaughnie says when you find her that evening. There's dried blood on her boots and dark circles under her eyes. She's been working as a medical technician during the day, as you'd expect. Um, yeah, I'm not talking to the innards. I can't spend all night doing this. No. Bro. Okay, I'm alright. Let's look. Let's ask around for the man from the White Attack. All kinds of clerks, sanitation technicians, and medical personnel are necessary to keep Camp Scheffler running. You seek them out and ask a few questions. People get real quiet, so quiet you're convinced that they know something. Apparently, there are rumors that the prisoners are planning some kind of mass escape, and that the man you're describing is somehow involved in that. You're not sure if that's true, but if you suspect that if you're interested in finding the man from the abandoned gas station, doing something for the prisoners might be the way to start. The only solid lead you gain is a name, Raoul. Okay, let's try and get the boot off of my car in case we screw up this situation just like we did the other two. You wait until not many people are watching, then head for your Integra with a screwdriver and an old tubular lock impressioning tool that's been rattling around in your kit since you drilled the CRX. But as you start to work, a swarm of ICE agents close in on your position. You retreat, but they set a guard around your Integra. So much for that quick getaway. That's unfortunate. Sure, let's look for something to steal. I hope I don't have to. Alright. An hour of scouting yields a few possibilities. Your easiest bet is to hit the temporary lockers. Once new prisoners are stripped of their valuables, their equipment is stored in 5x5 storage cubes in a fenced-off part of the camp. The cubes are barely guarded, and you'd have to keep your composure that close to the guards. If you can do that, you can try opening cube doors until you find an unlocked one. Rewards will be small, but risk will be minimal. If you're looking for greater and more risky rewards, you can head into one of the Quonset huts where the least organized militia groups keep its cash and weapons. You'd have to force one of their lockers, but they're not too well made, and you have your portable crowbar. It looks like the militias have also constructed some office space out of trailers. Some of the offices hold cash and other valuables. You just have to be smart enough to disable the alarms, though that shouldn't be any harder than whacking a locker with a crowbar. Finally, if you're looking for something with a real high-risk, high-reward excitement, you could break into Olive Krona's car. Okay, maybe not hers, but there's a private parking lot behind the red tent where Olive Krona and several other members of the Camarilla keep their rides. If you're clever enough to time the guard circuits just right, you can get inside and grab whatever is valuable there. I'm going to check my intelligence stuff, okay. Let's try and hack actually, what's my technology? Because that's probably more dependent on that than anything. It's 1. I'm not going to risk that. So we're going to go back and ignore all of that. Oh my god, I have to do one of these things. I don't want to do one of these things. It's very unfortunate. Okay, let's just go disable the thing. Let's to pass the time. You check the trailers and get a feel for the alarm system. The more secure ones have motion sensors and other technology that would take you too long to bypass. You avoid those and focus on one with a simple silent alarm hooked up to the door and the single window. You wait for the guards to clear out and then spend a few hours making sure you can jam the alarm. You're confident that you can with just your phone and a few peripherals that you always carry with you. With the alarm jammed, you crawl through the window, find a desk, and rifle through it until you find a fat roll of 20s. But as you slide the window shut, 4 guards approach the trailer, rifles ready. You duck behind a pile of AC units and they don't see you, but something must have drawn their attention. You get out of there before they start a sweep. After showering, oh my god, are you serious? After showering, you check the red tent, but it's sealed up tight. Olive Krona is deep in negotiations with the other branches of the federal and state governments and with private charitable organizations that need cheap labor. What in the world? She must know you're here, but between her and the Malinois and her endless parade of guards, you can't get in. Worse, more and more vehicles seem to be parked around the camp. There are too many people here, Vaughnie says when she sees you that evening. For all her faults, Dr. Call understood that the simplest way to maintain the masquerade was to keep people away. Obviously, Eleanor of Krona has a different approach, but I don't think it's a better one. I'm just gonna have to steal something else. I don't want to steal something else. I also don't want to do either of these. It's counterproductive to how I've been playing. Yeah, whatever. I stay calm so the guards don't notice me. And raid these storage bins where they store the migrant stuff. Um, oh my god. This isn't this. I don't count this as my fault. I didn't want to do any of it. I wanted to wait. You walk calmly past the guards that indifferently watch the storage bins. They're laid out in a regular grid, dozens of 5x5 cubes with heavy locks on them. You start pulling on the handles. After a few minutes, one opens and there's nothing inside. You keep looking, all the while keeping an eye out for security, but all the bins are either locked or empty. Then a face-masked guard spots you. He sweeps your flashlight over your position and comes running. Fortunately, he's one of the low-grade militia types, a big fat guy. He can't keep up with you. Still, you expect them to tighten up security now. The next day, you're repeatedly jarred awake by the sound of heavy equipment moving around. Vampires sleep heavy, but your nerves are on edge all day. Someone bangs savagely on your door just to get you ready to leave. Courier! It's Nilay. Get out here! Olive Krona wants to see you! You poke your head outside to confront the Venture's underling. The sky is tinged with purple in the west. Meet me at the red tent, they say. They snap. Then they take off. You've been ordered to the red tent, and you feel eyes on you as you step outside. After a few minutes spent checking possible exits, you enter the red tent for the first time. Bonnie follows you. She's scared of a lot of things, but not vampires. The guard dog that's outside takes the lead. You follow the Malinois. Most of it isn't offices like you were expecting. Instead, dozens of migrant prisoners, mostly women, are lined up in front of refurbished laptops performing mechanical Turk-style labor. A few good English skills appear to be phone banking for Texas politicians or with good English skills, or Christian charity organizations. Past the security door is a crude facsimile of a government office, complete with faux wood-paneled walls and a deep blue carpet. There she is. Look at that. She's got cheekbones. You find Olive Krona in an oversized office, seated at an elaborately carved wooden desk in front of a Department of Homeland Security seal. Olive Krona looks like the picture you saw of her. She's tall and gaunt, with long blonde hair arranged in an elaborate braid. She wears a blue-black pantsuit decorated with more silver jewelry than most government workers. Her colorless eyes meet you. You detect a flicker of distaste and disappointment. Oh, the courier is here. The Venture says, as if you haven't been trying to deliver the USB for nights. Tired of waiting, you march past Nilay and slap the USB down on her desk. From Prince Leto, I assume, she says before you can answer. She drops beneath the desk, rummages around, and pulls out a spare laptop. She inserts the USB, then starts to read. The Second Inquisition is coming, Olive Krona says. Thank you, Leto. Nilay clears their throat, then says, Isn't that a problem, ma'am? An opportunity, Olive Krona says, rubbing the head of the Malinois. The animal does not react. For too long I've tolerated all kinds of trash at this open feeding hole. Now the Second Inquisition gives me the opportunity to rid of the anarchs, the hangers-on, the filth. We will take the data we've gathered here and use it to stake a claim at another land holding facility. There are dozens to choose from, and the new one will be for the Camarilla alone. She checked what Leto wrote her. Yes, this confirms what I know and what I've been planning for. Nilay, a kill team from the Information Awareness Office at the Pentagon will be here in the morning. Your plans are waiting in your office. Read them now. Leave us. Nilay gets out there, leaving you and Vani with a very satisfied-looking Ventrue. And at that moment, she is every inch the Ventrue, a born ruler, always 3 steps ahead, always totally in control. She looks you up and down, hardly bothering to hide her distaste, then gestures for you to sit. So you're still here, she says. If you're looking for more work, I could use you, Teddy. I reward loyalty. Her eyes narrow and her earrings glitter in the cheap artificial light. I return loyalty. That's all we kindred have, you know, our bonds with each other. Technically, you've finished your job here and should be able to walk right back to your car, but before you can say anything, Olive Krona says, Camp Scheffler can always use a competent professional who's not already entangled in local politics. In exchange for helping me with certain matters here, perhaps I could teach you something. I prefer to work in cash. I respect that, the Blue Bud says. Sometimes it's unhealthy to grow too close. But if you change your mind, and if you serve me well, of course, I'm willing to share my clan's secrets of mental command and near invincibility. And, of course, she settles her hand on the head of her Malinois. Excuse me, sorry about that. But tell me, if you're only looking for money, why are you still here when the road offers so many opportunities for an ambitious young neonate? That's a good question, and one that might not deserve an honest answer. Vonnie glances at you to the blue blood. It's nice to have her back up here. She stares right into Olive Kona's eyes. I'll be straightforward, if cautious. I'm here to help the Camarilla. I'm impressed with what you've done here. So, you're something more than Prince Lato's errand boy, Olive Kona says. I'm glad you recognize what I've been able to create here. Um, yeah. Your underlings are crooked and stealing blood. It shouldn't be hard to offer my services as a shrewd auditor and investigator. Yes, Teddy, obviously they're stealing blood, they're vampires. I permit some slack in my operation because rigid control is impossible. They're selling the blood, you say. What? You walk her through the details of what you think is happening. After a few minutes, Olive Kona reaches into a file cabinet and slams down about 5 pounds worth of records. This shouldn't take someone with your skills long. I want you to go through these and transfer transfer a note any discrepancies. You're going to take some notes back to Prince Lato. You'll be paid, of course, but in addition, I will consider a more extensive arrangement. I would not want you going to work permanently for Lato, after all. That Second Inquisition raid, you said? You don't want to sound alarmist or impugn Olive Kona's abilities, but I'll see your car moved to a secure location, she says. And feel free to move, of course, but review those ledgers and be careful with them. I am showing them to you as a sign of trust. You scan them, instantly recognizing things you can use to get around the camp more efficiently. Olive Kona's complacency is alarming, but also strangely convincing. Is the supernatural charisma of Clan Ventrue subtly influence your reaction? No, certainly not. You stand up, confident that you can help the Camarilla manage a successful evacuation so they can rebuild elsewhere. The Malinois escorts you out, then freezes and finally reacts to something snarling at the man in the door. You're a hard woman to find, Ellen. I can't believe you made me leave my gamer chair. I can't remember what voice I used for Julian, I'll be honest. You turn at the familiar voice. Julian Sim stands in the doorway. The Ventrue racks her brain for a moment and says, The water boy? Julian Sim, the Banu Hakim says. He's wearing a Junji Ito hoodie and a sly grin. Ellen waits a bit. You realize she's waiting for her retainers to swarm Julian, but they don't come. Yours cracks a Dr. Pepper, takes a sip. Olive Kona sighs and gestures for her dog to stand down. Love that for you, my good friend. What do you want, what do you want, boy? She asks the Azimite. I want you to stop overestimating your chances, Julian says. He tosses a plastic folder full of photographs and documents on Olive Kona's desk. Her eyes widen as she sorts through them. The IOA kill team is going to smash you to paste and then light the paste on fire, Julian says. You don't have time to pack everything in neat little boxes. Get out now. But yes, all your hard work, very sad. When I tighter ship next time. How dare you, fledgling? Olive Kona snaps. The Malinois snarls. That's Dr. Fledgling to you, GS10, Julian says. What's your degree in? I don't know, lots of things. The point is, I'm offering my services to expedite your evacuation. OCR scanners, encryption, Olive Kona says. No. Then what? I drove here in a van full of librarians from the University of Arizona. Olive Kona's eyes dart from you to Julian and back to you. Teddy, keep an eye on Sim. Okay. My apologies, gamers. I do try and avoid doing such things like sneezing during these things, but hey, you can't help it. When you gotta sneeze, you gotta sneeze. Olive Kona's eyes dart from you to Julian and back to you. Teddy, keep an eye on Sim while his librarians help me pack. The moment you're out of Olive Kona's earshot, in the fast-emptying main room of the red tent, Julian takes you by the elbow and says, You don't have to do what the Camarilla tells you, Teddy. Don't you see? Ellen doesn't have the skills or the expertise to rebuild this place somewhere else. She's just grabbing what she can and hoping she can destroy some anarchs and thin bloods because she hates everyone who isn't Clan Ventrue. But I can take this information and rebuild this oasis. I can do it better. I don't know why I've given him a British accent now. Vonnie glares at Julian, totally unimpressed. Yeah, okay. Get your hands off of me, Julian. If you want to help, go pack some boxes. Actually, no, not that one. I'm doing what it takes to survive the night, Julian. You should try that instead of trying out all these schemes. Julian just shakes his head. You're making a mistake, Teddy. We're young and allowed to make mistakes, but not forever. He signals his librarians and starts grabbing whatever he can to whatever he can get his hands on. Now you're off to work. Now you're going to work while Julian steals everything he can. You step outside the red tent. The evacuation is really kicking off, with Olive Krona coordinating her underlings and Julian pretending to help her while stealing as much as he can. Among Vonnie's many skills is inventory. She'll be useful here. You consider how you can help, or help, as the case may be. Olive Krona keeps a lot of files and equipment on lockdown in the red tent. What is she hiding in there? You can keep your wits about. If you can keep your wits about you, you can use the distraction to break into the secure area and see what's back there. Your Nosferatu contact, Lenora, could help you to organize the Anarchs to load up supplies, which would take leadership and attention to detail, mostly to make sure that they didn't steal too much. If you're smart and technically inclined, enough extensive computer data is waiting to be transferred out. The equivalent physical data, boxes of files, folders, maps, and mimeographs would require an equal degree of intelligence as well as good understanding of academic research techniques in order to grab the most valuable material. Olive Krona's operation is already a mess. Whether digital or physical, someone with a keen eye for detail might just be able to hang around and spot everything that gets dropped, misplaced, or misfiled. There's a lot of equipment to move, and the cat-masked guards aren't helping. Why would they? This is vampire business, and most of them don't understand what's happening. But you could ask Olive Krona for money and pass some of her cash around to get the guards working for you. And while the Russian Bruja would have to be persuaded to help, their tent is right next to Olive Krona's. If you could convince them to help with the evacuation instead of just fleeing, they might be useful. Sure, people aren't coordinating well enough, even with the phones and walkie-talkies. I perform a brief ritual that will help people remain in contact and coordinate the evacuation. The ritual you review is an old Kuldunic rite used by one of the old Sabbat clans to hold their ramshackle domains together centuries ago. You recite the meticulous old church Slavonic and wonder if the spirits of the Arizona desert will even respond. But as you open your wrist and the blood wafts on the breeze, you feel the spirits of the air gathering around you. You hear behind you. It's Millicent yelling uselessly into an old iPhone. Clan Lasamba doesn't deal with new technology. I said move everything into the truck. Truck! I'm not swearing at you. The refrigerated truck! Ah! Then she spots you, and her normally empty gaze shows a flicker of interest. A Koldun, yeah, she says. Right. One of the old Sabbat clans practiced the Koldun. Just a dabbler, you say. But it works by... I know how the spirits of the air work, boy. Millicent says she quickly relays descriptions of her underlings and tells you what she needs to tell them. You direct the spirits of the air, eager to serve now that they're full of vitae, to whisper messages to them, and the spirits carry messages back and forth. The magic helps Millicent coordinate the evacuation of vessels, store blood, and the records for both. The Lasamba barkeeper runs off to organize the final stages of the transport, and you maintain this as long as you can. By the time the spirits slither back into the middle air, you're tired but satisfied, as all the blood data is packed up and ready to move. You and Vonnie return to the red tent, and just as Julian and Olive Krona finish emptying out the government offices, they're arguing in acrimonious and frightened tones. Almost nothing has rolled out, and the camp is in chaos. Nile pushes their way through the crowds to speak with Olive Krona. They're limping. Two of their fellow retainers are helping a third get out of her ballistic vest. You can see she's been shot twice. Listening carefully, you hear Nile say, all around the camp. They'll be here in less than an hour, and Julian holds up his hand for Nile to be silent. The Banu Hakim cocks his head and listens. The retainer shakes their head, but you hear what Olive Krona and Julian hear. The faint drone of helicopters. You're almost out of time. Vonnie and I work with Lenora and the Anarchs to get equipment loaded onto the vehicles. Lenora is speaking with the Gangrel, a ragged and silent group in constant, unsettling motion. A huge black wolf, also a Gangrel, circles you, suspicious but not exactly hostile. But the Anarchs fear the Second Inquisition as much as Olive Krona does. You and Vonnie organize them into small teams and get them loading equipment and breaking down supplies. They steal just enough to feel good about it, which is fine by you. You peer into the back of your Integra, which is currently full of whatever equipment and information Olive Krona's flunkies could toss into it, including a whole filing cabinet and several older tower-style CPUs. Elsewhere, the evacuation is proceeding smoothly. It's time to roll, Olive Krona tells Nile. It's time to roll, Olive Krona tells Neela. The retainer nods and gets Olive Krona and the Malinois in her jeep, and Julian sighs. You don't think he was able to steal much from the Blue Blood, and hops into his Sprinter van. Bonnie's Fiat scoots past you, weaving around convoy trucks despite its heavy load of scientific and medical equipment. For a moment, you wonder what's going to become of the prisoners. No one let them out. But then an F-150 behind you lays on its horns and flashes his lights like you're not rolling forward fast enough in a Burger King drive-thru. The convoy is moving. You roll through the main gate. Julian used to say that when a plan went perfectly, everything was boring. He only said that about his StarCraft games, but it applies in real life too. There's some action behind you, and a helicopter screams overhead 10 minutes up the road. But if the Information Awareness Office or whoever authorized this op expected a pitched battle, they should have struck earlier. You're gone. Since dawn is so near, the convoy starts to break up a half hour outside of the camp. You find a location tapped into your sun visor. 5 more minutes of driving. You're just starting to feel nervous as the eastern sky lightens and you turn onto a dirt road and arrive at an abandoned wildlife conservation facility. Boarded up, but so far from any major highways that graffiti has barely touched it. You check inside and the windows are covered. No light can get inside. This will do. You head into the abandoned building to rest. You get back on the road the moment the sun sets. You keep off the major highways. The radio is full of wildly incorrect chatter about the terrorist attack on an ICE holding facility. You reach Tuscan before midnight. You stop at the Viper. The Eagle Princess flunkies show up to take the data that Olive Krona loaded into your Integra. You make sure the retainers don't steal anything that isn't theirs, then head inside. The Malinois is waiting for you. The dog jerks its head, signaling for you to follow. Olive Krona is waiting for you in a well-appointed meeting room at the Viper. You've never been in here before. She's dressed in a long black gown like she's going to the opera. Her Malinois curls up next to her leather armchair and watches you, red stones glittering on its collar. I promised you a reward if you helped me, Olive Krona says, and I keep my word. And just as I mentioned, Olive Krona, I do prefer to be appreciated in cash. I would criticize your straightforward dealings, Olive Krona says, but I appreciate knowing where you stand. There are too many liars in government. She writes you a check as she speaks, then hands you a check for $6,000. I need to rebuild, Teddy, but thank you for your assistance. She rises and departs, followed by her dog. Prince Leto is on the stairs between the rooftop Elysium and the Viper's semi-public areas. He's dressed in a tuxedo, as if he's just about to hit a nicer place than the Viper. Ah, Teddy, Leto says when he sees you. It's good to see you in one piece after the Second Inquisition got through with Camp Scheffler. My man Alexander has prepared a room where you can type up what happened. Leto's Ghoul, Alexander, leads you to a room with an old-fashioned typewriter. When the old Ghoul scans your work, he says, Prince Leto will be satisfied with this. Let us hope we can find a way to rebuild quickly. Alexander hands you your money. You head back to your Integra and make sure the money adds up. You return to your apartment and park the Integra. After a day of fitful dreams, you throw on your streetwear and Adidas and get ready for another night. You take the rickety elevator downstairs to the parking lot where your Integra is waiting for you. You instinctively scan the nearby buildings, but the evening looks quiet. A few cars roll past as people get off work. Tuscan starts to wake up from its 9 to 5 lethargy. A metallic-hued sports car rolls into the parking lot, looking like a space invader next to the light-up pickups and minivans. Julian Sim parks his Fisker Karma next to your Integra, steps out of the sports car, and looks around. Chapter 7, halfway to dawn. Julian is wearing a Nicolas Cage dragon shirt under a zip-up glitch hoodie with the Rebel Alliance logo from Star Wars. Do you have an apartment up there, or do you just park on an open manhole? The Banu Hakim asks. I work for the Camarilla now, Julian. Leave me alone. If you work for the Camarilla, why are you doing what I want? What? The silver knife has caused more trouble for my enemies than a whole pack of thralls could, Julian says. First to distract the Jasper Knowles so he couldn't find me while I was in Denver. Then Prince Leto's enforcer, Dove, spent 2 weeks investigating the pawn shop where I dropped it off instead of bothering me. And then you drove out to that airfield in New Mexico. Sorry, you got into trouble there, but it's not like you even needed to see it. I don't know who grabbed it in the end, but it's still causing trouble. So, what? So what does it do? My research has indicated that the knife has no particular powers, but Julian might know more, and I'm curious. Actually, no, but Who destroyed that usurper? It's not like I feel bad for Knowles. He was conducting hideous experiments on the kindred, but I still don't see the full picture. First, stop saying destroyed in public. It's a masquerade violation. And, a little louder now, we can't let anyone know that we're vampires. Second, well, after all we've been through, I guess you deserve to know the truth. I killed Jasper Knowles. Professional rivalry. As a sorcerer, I try and learn from my fellow scholars, not view them as rivals, but I'm in the minority. Professionally, my sorcery couldn't compete with his. We're just neonates, Teddy. Jasper was almost as old as Littell. No, I killed him because I am a child of the Hakim, and we judge the unrighteous. There's an incomprehensible gleam in Julian's eyes again. Some nights it seems like Julian Sim couldn't be a worse representative of his religion or the larger cultural complex that surrounds and sustains Clan Banu Hakim. And some nights your old friend looks like the angel of death. Do you really believe in all that? I'm not sure I ever did, and I've never been able to square Julian's piety with the rest of them. I don't expect you to understand me, Teddy, but you're not Banu Hakim. Of course, I'm a weird mistake, an offshoot that my clan immediately regretted. My sire planned to exert the clan's influence in Southeast Asia, starting off with Malaysia, which makes sense, lots of Muslims, meaning that there's some common ground there. He was disappointed in me from the first night. Even my piety offended him, so I stole his grimoires and left for America, and, well, you know the rest. Well, not all of the rest, not what I'm working on and how you've helped me get there. What? You wait. Well, you weren't able to get me St. Basil's Hospital or access to Camp Shuffler's data on the blood trade, Julian says. Nonetheless, I've had to forge my own path. I've retrieved copies of Camp Shuffler's data for my own use, and I've taken over a few smaller hospitals. But why, you ask? Because I'm going to replace the Masquerade with something else, piece by piece, so slowly that no one notices until it's happened, Julian says. The old ways of hiding before the First Inquisition prevented mortals from understanding. The Masquerade prevents them from knowing. I'll prevent them from caring. You can't change human nature, Julian. Or vampire nature. The Camarilla accepts that this is the way it's going to be, and they're probably right. No, you don't understand. I'm not going to change human nature. I think I'm the only person who really understands it. Look. The first time I saw the U.S. as a real place, not just a film set on the other side of my TV, was the Rodney King riots. I barely spoke English then, but wasn't that amazing? People saw what was happening right in front of them, cops beating the shit out of some guy, and they didn't believe. Did you understand the power of that when it happened? The revelation it represented? Before you can answer, Julian bangs on the hood of his Fisker and says, all people want is an effing story, Teddy, not the truth, not an ideology. They want to know who the main character is. TV's told us that as kids, cops, doctors, the rich, those are the people that matter. Even if they're bad, they're the ones with the point of view. If you control the point of view, you matter. And that's it. Julian, every time the Camarilla tried to do anything with media except cover up our existence, it blew up in their faces, repeating an old mistake. The Camarilla only reacts, Julian says. Elders are constantly seeing developments, misunderstanding them, and trying to control them, because all they can do is control, influence, and corrupt. They can't build. I want to make something new. I want to make us. I want to become the point of view. Do you understand? Imagine. You turn on your TV, and there's a show on about rich assholes, and they're terrible people, but it's about them, right? The story is about them, so the world, the real world, starts to become about them. We need to make the story of the world about us through influence and manipulation and art and a good bit of old-fashioned mind control. We need a new point of view and a new eye throughout which the mortals view the world. They can't understand us at first, but eventually they'll understand and they'll love us because the eye through which they see the world, it's us. But to even begin this project, I need 3 things. Data, influence, and an experimental subject. Well, 4 things. Data, influence, and an experimental subject. And no sorcerer is conducting unholy experiments using the research I need. For a moment, he burns with an aura of righteousness, but then Julian turns back into the cold rat you know, as he digs the toe of his sneaker into the ground and glances uncomfortably at you. But there's another reason I got rid of Jasper Knowles, he said. The Banu Hakim says uncomfortably. he knew Isla. There she is. Gorgeous artwork as usual. November 1918. Dear God, you're still with us. The warlock jumps to his feet at the little outdoor cafe, rattling the teacups as you emerge from the desert just behind the Gangle pilot. And who is this? The warlock asks, from switching from English to French. Excuse me, where are my manners? I am Jasper Knowles, gentleman magician. He bows, awkward in his desert robes. And Leto, you look shorter without your airplane. I lost it in the desert. I give him that accent. I lost it in the desert, until Gangle says, but I made a friend. He isn't like the Outlanders you've met before in your long life, you can't help but think. Leto, or the Bracklaw, is sophisticated without being pompous, charming without being cloying, but perhaps you're not thinking clearly because you just walked across half the Sahara with him after your planes crashed, and because you're almost mad with hunger. And who is your friend? Jasper asks. This is Isla, Leto says, of Clan Banu Hakim. Ah, your enemy. Our enemy. Except I have news, my outlander friend. I just got news from the Dove of Mudros. She sent it via radio. What a brave new world we've entered. Of instantaneous communication. Did you ever think we would see it? Anyway, the war is over. It's almost over everywhere now, I think. Though news travels by donkey carts in some places. I'm sure that will all change, though, in this century. He looks at you. I'm afraid you've lost. I'm afraid you lost, young lady. Or at least the Ottomans have lost. How would the Azamites adapt, I wonder? Teddy, are you still with us? Morocco fades away, replaced by Arizona. Isla's thoughts withdraw, vanishing deep into your marrow, where they linger like a dull ache in your bones. We should never have done what we did. But we did, and I don't know any vampire magic that lets me go back in time, Julian says. We need to look into the future. You said you wouldn't work with me, but I think we can still work together, Teddy. The Second Inquisition wants the Camarilla gone from the Southwest, and they have the power to do it. You need to understand. Every canine needs to understand. The Masquerade is breaking down. Do you think it can last until the end of this century? You have no faith in the Camarilla. It's weathered the First Inquisition, the rise of the surveillance state, and worse, its traditions can change. And it can endure. I didn't say that properly at all. Julian angrily shakes his head. The Camarilla has never been flexible enough to adapt, he says. It relied on the raw supernatural power of its elders, and those elders are leaving. That's why the Second Inquisition is tearing them through them like a fat dog through a meatball sub. Their masquerade is brittle, and brittle things are useless now. He holds up his smartphone, takes a selfie with you in Integra, and uploads it to God knows where. Soon, the whole world will be visible to everyone all the time. Barring apocalypse, this is inevitable. We can't hide because there will be no place to hide. We must act. We must seize the narrative. Seize every one of these digital windows and tell the people a story about what they want to see. Okay. And tell people the story about what they see. They will know the facts, and we will tell them what it means. Only then can we can survive. So, will you help me? Julian, I'm not going to be there when the Camarilla or the Pentagon or whoever drops a bomb on you. Get away from me. I hope the Camarilla keeps you safe, Teddy. I really do. Julian says, getting back into his Fisker karma. But I think you're going to have a good month and then a bad year. Good luck. As the sports car lights disappear, a flicker of movement near your Integra catches your attention. Riga, Prince Leto's eagle, has landed almost within reach. She studies you with the godlike arrogance of a bird of prey, then hops a few feet away. She settles again a moment later. Looks like you're being summoned to the Viper. Leto has done well by me so far. I won't let my guard down, but I head out. Every Elysium is dangerous, but Prince Leto seems to enforce something that resembles a coherent system of laws. You hop in your Integra, watch Riga for a moment to make sure she's taking you to the Viper, then speed off, not for the Viper, but for Vonnie's lab. Once you have Vonnie, you head for Leto's nightclub. So, I'm not actually nervous about meeting Kindred, because I work for Dr. Call, but I'm not actually a nightclub person. Is there etiquette I should know about? Am I showing too much skin? She shifts uncomfortably in her tube top. This is going to be ugly, Bonnie. I know Nvidia had a temper, but the things at the Viper are monsters. Don't worry about me seeing things I shouldn't. Dr. Call did things that she couldn't blame on her temper, Vonnie says, then quickly drops the subject. You get valet parking this time, which is nice, but the swole guy in the Ed Hardy shirt you've seen before looks haunted. You don't think he's a blood doll, so it's not like he's anemic, but his face looks gray and tired, like he's been up for nights. You check your suit for lint or wrinkles, but the bouncer just waves you in through the glass-lined VIP entrance. You could get used to this. The crowd on the dance floor is oddly subdued, as if some malaise pouring down from the above has infected the mortals. But the music is still pounding, and the crowd toward the middle of the dance floor is a blur of limbs and sweat. I'm going to go get a drink, Bonnie says, hurrying to the bar. Four guys instantly swarm her, but security here is tight. She shouldn't be in any danger. The upstairs Elysium is crowded with vampires and retainers whispering to each other in worried tones. You don't see the eagle prince. Eagle prince. Rika circles overhead, then perches on one of the cacti that cover the hidden roof of the Viper. Good, you're here. Dove, Prince Lato's Nosferatu second in command, is studying the stairs through the cacti. As the city lights up here are dim through whatever sorcery has touched this place, she's wearing rough, old leather over her powerful physique, like what a motorcycle courier would have worn just after they invented motorcycles. Dove's skull-like face is always ugly, but you can see the marks of recent and incomplete regeneration. She was burned by fire or sunlight and hasn't quite finished repairing herself. Well, you're a survivor. I keep thinking about that story you told me about the Cadillac and the werewolf, and I've started to enjoy Dove's company, even when she's difficult. I have a lot more stories, Dove says, almost 2 centuries of them. Maybe I'll tell you a few sometime. Then the Nosferatu's eyes follow a maroon Toyota AE86 as it wheezes into the parking lot. Carlos hops out and runs to the passenger door. He and the guy in the Ed Hardy shirt try to help a third man out, but he's obviously dead. You recognize the third man. He's one of Tuscan's Ghoul couriers. He drives, or drove, a yellow Chevy Nova SS, and now he's dead. Carlos joins you and Dove on the roof a minute later. He's wearing a cheap suit smeared with blood. Looking at the suit, Dove asks her Ghoul, "How was internal affairs?" Part of why the Ivory Tower has been so successful is its control over moral institutions like the police. Ghoul shakes his head. "I'm suspended with pay. They're everywhere, Dove, and my contacts in Seattle are gone. Do you know what that means for the blood trade? It means, oh, God, is this guy still walking around? Why aren't you dead yet, Teddy? Everyone else is." Carlos, go find Prince Leto. The Ghoul blanches, but does as he told. "And you, would you like to know who here at the Viper works for the Second Inquisition?" "Because I'd sure like to have him know," Dove says. "Someone deleted all the records in our monitoring station." She slouches against the railing, then stands up straight, determined not to look weak around you. "The Second Inquisition has spies everywhere, Teddy. To my surprise, you actually seem honest, and you've helped us. I respect Prince Leto, but he's too open. He holds to the old ways that the Camarilla used to have before the beckoning called most of our elders away, and everything went to crap. He tolerates anarchs. He works with fringers and independents like you. And, well, you're alright." She clears her throat. "But others aren't. Now most of them are dust, and the information they were carrying is in our enemies' hands. How can you let people pass in and out in a time of war?" The Viper is a cash cow, Duff. He needs a dance hall, or he runs out of money, and poor princes don't last. It's that simple. Actually, no. I'll do it on one condition tonight. You and I go out on one condition tonight. You and I go out for a drive tomorrow night. You don't know how to leave anyone alone, do you, Ted? Do you? Dove says, but then she glances your way and shifts her shoulders. All right, Teddy. Find this traitor for me, and I'll use you as an excuse to take a drive. You don't mind being used, do you? But don't disappoint me. I want that spy caught. You might be able to help with that, actually. I don't expect you to catch a traitor hidden in wainscoting, Dove says, but you're a fresh set of eyes, and Prince Leto trusts you. Use those fresh eyes, look for anything strange, and report back to me. Let's solve this problem before we all have to flee to Seattle. I won't make any mistakes. No paying flanks to Seattle for us. I'm determined to impress these Camarilla types. Dove just laughs. Let's hope not, she says. When Prince Cross up there realizes that we're not sending blood from Camp Scheffler north, he's going to be mad. So if we have to run, I'm running to San Francisco. I hear it's nice, but I'm not running anywhere. Find the spy, Teddy. There are only a few dozen people up here in Elysium, but the Viper sprawls like a medieval castle, and even with the mood subdued, there are hundreds of people downstairs. You wonder how to approach this investigation, and if any of the information you can find could turn a profit. One thing is for sure, the Second Inquisition is getting dangerous. If you don't find any clues, the spy will escape with information about the local kindred, including you. Letting that information leave the Viper is a clear violation of the Masquerade. I work a ritual to bring me good fortune in this hunt, aiding my chances. The harpies and gossip mongers upstairs claim that Jasper Noah's helped create the hidden rooftop Elysium, so the first thing you do is conduct a brief ritual to see the extent of his workings. This rite, allegedly created by the mage hunter that Mendicamina, illuminates the shape and scope of the arcane workings and allowed the long-extinguished Blood Witch to hunt down and kill wizards in the early nights of Clan Tremere. You recite the Latin chant until the blood drips from your fingernails, the smear of vitae across your eyes. It's just as you thought, without a dedicated thaumaturgist to maintain the working. Knowles' rooftop Perdo Imaginum has started to spread, wreathing everything around the Viper in a miasma of shadow and secrecy. Prince Leto will have a problem with that in a few years, but right now you can use the blood cataracts over your pupils to see through the Viper's occult haze and perceive clues more clearly. It's time to charm the Elysium goers. It shouldn't be hard to be on my best behavior and make small talk. If I can persuade them to like me, I can overhear something useful or damning. You catch all sorts of whispered gossip as you glance across the rooftop garden. Camp Scheffler? Gone. That usurper courier had something to do with it. I heard the Russians helped the Second Inquisition burn it down. That's ridiculous. There's no such thing as Russians. What about Flagstaff? No one knows that the degenerate from Mexico City got it destroyed, but no one knows if it was the Second Inquisition or... The Viper is a well-chosen name, as the Elysium, like every Elysium, is a nest of serpents who care nothing for the traditions and who care for little except surviving another night and humiliating their rivals. Nonetheless, you're the model of decorum and charm. You converse, flatter, praise, and condemn, moving your way among the old guard Ventrue and the local Malkavians who always seem to see too much, and the various ghouls and blood dolls who believe themselves important here. After more than an hour of elegant tedium, you start hearing a new Toreador that everyone is excited to meet. Elegant, charming, and apparently quite rich. She's in town for just a few nights. It takes you a moment to recognize the thin blood. Her makeup job is exceptional, but you can see how the cosmetics hide scabs that won't go away. You remember her from St. Basil's. She's one of Paternoster's, or was. Now that St. Basil's is being renovated, maybe she's been forced to flee. It looks like she's been trying to move up in the world with this little con. As the thin blood lies and charms her way through the Elysium, it's clear that you're the only one who knows about her, and she hasn't recognized you. You file that information away for later. As midnight approaches, Prince Leto has yet to make an appearance, though Carlos has notified him of your arrival. Dove talks with the other kindred, who are worried about a courier who is now 2 nights late. Guani has learned of how old Alexander is. The ghouls are discussing the Franco-Prussian War. Dove, my ghoul and I need access to the Viper's records. Vani and I will use our education to examine the reports for discrepancies. Sure, the Nosferatu says. Talk to Alexander in his office. You track down Prince Leto's ancient ghoul, Alexander, who permits you and Vani to access to the Viper's public records so long as nothing leaves his office. After an hour of meticulous research and organization, followed by another hour on Alexander's old-fashioned calculator, you uncover a consistent discrepancy every Monday and Thursday. Who works the Viper Mondays and Thursdays? Who works the Vipers Mondays and Thursdays? Vani asks Alexander. Lana, Alexander says. Pertaining to Bridget, the Ventrue. Good woman. Ran into some trouble with Vector, a wholesaler here in Tuscan a while back, but now she's out of trouble, scot-free, or Irish-free. Is it a pun? It is a pun, since Bridget is Irish. He smiles, revealing his grey teeth. You slide the ledger across the table to Alexander. Well, the old ghoul says, maybe not. We're bringing all of this to Dove. Dove is impressed by your work and thanks you. It's not like you caught the spy, but if there even is a single Second Inquisition spy operating at the Viper, but you just removed one source of suspicion, got rid of a compromised employee, and saved the Viper some money. It's the hour when nightclubs get a little crazy. Dove and Carlos deal with a few mundane crises, and then watch the streets from the rooftop. Their expressions bleak. Whoever was supposed to arrive tonight isn't coming. As your ghoul, Vonnie, has been allowed to up to Elysium, one ghoul seems to have known both Jasper knows and in video call and wants to start trouble instead of dourly watching the streets. But Vonnie isn't helpless in a duel of wits. The other ghoul slinks away, insulted but unwilling to escalate the confrontation. Love that for you, Vonnie. Keep up the good work. I'm going to check my streetwise go because I don't remember what I... Nothing. I'm not going to waste time with that then. Sure, since I did that thing earlier, I hit the dance floor, keep my wits about me to avoid trouble, and just try to be aware of the general vibe. I've followed bad vibes to the source of trouble before. Fledgling and neonate kindred circulate along the walls. Though they're not allowed to feed here, they congregate at the edge of the dance floor to exchange gossip. Has anyone heard of what happened in Phoenix? I've got a friend there. It's bad. The government is starting a renovation. Big windows, no more underground tunnels. So they're screwed? Yeah, they're all screwed. But then again, who isn't? And has anyone heard from Dallas? Just what you see on the news. All the house fires. It's quiet for the Viper, but that means the dance floor is a cacophony of industrial beats and thrashing limbs. You edge around the dancers and try to push past the mood of vague worry to find something interesting. You quickly get a feel for the Viper. Inevitably, you follow a few false leads, bad moods, frayed tempers, and anxious looks lead you to investigate fights, breakups, and a couple low-level hustlers. You follow the sounds of argument and a general feeling of bitterness to one of the back rooms. You press your ear up against one wall and listen. We can run everything out of a parking lot, a woman's voice says. Sam's dead now, so we... Sam's dead, a man's deep voice says. He died in the parking lot, man. Pay attention. Miguel's dead too, or at least he never came back from the job. The whole security staff is getting bumped off. Man, that's messed up, but it's good for us. Won't Roadrunner take a cut? The man asks. Not anymore. They've gone legitimate, upmarket. They sell painkillers straight to hospitals and private clinics now, and we sell them here. You step into the shadows as a man and woman emerge from a private room. The woman carries a plastic case you recognize from St. Basil's Hospital used to transport prescription-strength painkillers, though she scraped the logo off the front. Interesting. There's a ripple of excitement from the kindred when Alexander appears and speaks with Dove. Rumor has it that Leto will appear soon. That means you still have to decide what to do with the thin blood masquerading as a wealthy toreador. She is a security issue for the Viper. I let Dove know. You tell Dove that you recognize the thin blood from St. Basil's. That adds up, the Nosferatu says. How do you want it done? And Carlos asks his regnant. Dove glances towards you, then takes Carlos out of earshot. He listens and nods. You don't see the thin blood again. There's only one thing you've discovered. There's only one other thing you've discovered. That couple running painkillers out of the back room. Princess Toe is still busy, but keeps the crowd waiting for another hour. There's a flutter of nervous excitement as someone else appears at the steps, but it's just Dove, carrying a blood-dotted backpack. Who still has a phone? She says. I said, who still has a phone? A few people who hold up their flip phones. Someone has a Samsung Galaxy. Throw them out. We're done with phones. That's how they tracked our couriers. Our tricks don't work anymore. He starts working through the crowd, and while Dove seems to like you, that won't buy you any leniency here. You and Vonnie are in the back. Yeah. I am going to need my phone. I keep it cool and I keep it and stay cool so I can light a Dove. Hopefully this works. You signal Vonnie, who tosses you her phone. When Dove appears, you toss the phone in the backpack. And your retainer? She asks. Why would I let a ghoul have a phone? You say. Dove just shakes her head and keeps moving. It's not much of a lie, but it worked. Once all of the phones are collected except yours, Prince Leto finally ascends to the rooftop Elysium. Despite the aura of fear that pervades the Viper, the prince is immaculate. He strides confidently past you and Vonnie, not even looking your way. He wears a white cotton suit, his unruly blonde hair. It's blonde? I thought it was... Okay. His unruly blonde hair pulled back by a black ribbon. Two armadillos follow him as he works the crowd, comforting the sincerely worried kindred and hangers-on. Then he spends a few minutes talking to Dove. His eyes are transfixed on the eastern horizon, though Dove looks west towards the highway. He finally notices you. His gray eyes are calm and steady. It's like none of the worry that pervades Tuscan is allowed to touch its prince. Come with me, Teddy. We have to discuss Julian Sim. It's not like any muscle shows up to move you along. Leto doesn't need it. He just waves you through the glass box overlooking the dance floor to a short hallway lined with iron gates. Confused and uncertain. Give me a moment, I'm sorry. It won't take too terribly long. Alright, iron gates. Confused and uncertain, Vonnie moves to follow, but Dove stops her. A gate opens and Alexander steps through. He bows to the prince. Where is he? Where is he? Leto says. He escaped, sir, but it is not dawn, and the Malkavians may yet find him. I wanted the spy brought in for questioning, or failed that, destroyed outright, Leto says, not showing any irritation. And you sent the lunatics. Alexander flinches like a slapdog. Teddy worked hard to discover that our previous main suspect was merely crooked, not a servant of the Inquisition. You have wasted his time and mine. I am most sorry. Go back upstairs and tell Dove that the spy has escaped, Leto tells his ghoul. Do not tell her that it was because you sent the lunatics instead of the old Princess Childer. The hallway ends in the double doors that open on the Eagle Prince's private office. Make yourself comfortable, Leto says, gesturing to a selection of overstuffed armchairs and settling behind a heavy oak desk. This place is a hall of memories and mementos, paintings, photos, old weapons, strange treasures, many of them of great antiquity and beauty. You see a tapestry labeled the Lampago, books in several languages, all sorts of ancient and valuable treasures. The Lampago. The monster like the monsters hunters. Okay, the Lampago, like the monster hunters destroyed here in Tuscan a few years back. I examined the tapestry. How close was Leto to that creature? The harpies and gossip mongers up in the Elysium say that Lampago was an outlander, just like Prince Leto, though others claim she wasn't a vampire at all. The tapestry resembles the unicorn in captivity, but more monstrous and terrible. The Lampago is a kind of man-tiger with a youth's beautiful face and a bestial blood-red body. In this depiction, the Lampago is fighting off a trio of armored knights. One clutches a maiden, and the other women are scattered about the forest, already dead. There's a placard with commentary, but it's in Polish and Russian. Photographs line another wall. Leto in a French airman's uniform during the Great War, 1917. Paternoster with Thomas Mann and Thomas Mann and Bertolt Brecht at a restaurant in Santa Monica, 1942. Jasper Knowles and Despine, the Toreador in Las Vegas, smiling at their tacky outfits, 1960. A grim-looking man in a boxy suit, the venturer who once ruled Tuscan, with a smiling golden-haired Donald Trump in the foreground. Leto and Dove half hidden behind 1987. Yeah. A beautiful black-haired woman on the Spanish Riviera wearing a sun hat under the light of the moon, 1920. That night you poached dolls from the Archbishop of Marbella, hidden crumbling fortifications that no mortal had seen in 100 years, and you even flew again and crashed again. But the Newport 20 got you safely to Gibraltar and the last palace of the Banu Hakim in Europe. And then, under the moonlight, give me a second, I got it. Okay. Teddy, it's Prince Leto. Who else would it be? Teddy. The Prince of Tuscan calls you back to the 21st century. You grab the desk to avoid falling and look for something in his office, anything that you can recall to yourself. We traveled all over the world in those nights, Leto says, looking at the photos, like foolish neonates. And it's not like any of us were young. But that's all over now. I'm entombed here. Not even Dove drives anymore. You think about your deal with Dove. Dove thinks I'm too merciful as Prince, Leto goes on. But I don't punish people for who they are. A friend of mine was embraced unlawfully in Los Angeles, and the prince there, LaCroix, I'm sure you know the story. And I didn't... Side note, we're going to be playing that game too. It's from 2004. And I didn't destroy my predecessor's child. You may have noticed. I got to make sure that my mic is still... Okay. You may have noticed. Indeed, those blue bloods are always skulking around upstairs. Well, except for one, after he conspired to consume NVIDIA call. Why he thought I would tolerate him drinking another vampire's soul just because of his former status. Anyway, I allow the clanless into the Elysium and permit thin bloods to traverse my domain. The problems at St. Basil's and Phoenix are a problem for me because I want them to find someplace safe. And in my time as prince, I have never once called a blood hunt. I choose to believe it is because my people respect me and have committed no crimes that make it necessary. My point, Teddy, is that I'm not going to punish you for simply associating with Julian Sim. The thing is, I really don't work for Julian. It should be easy to remain polite and honest and convince Prince Leto of this. Remaining on your best behavior before the Prince of Tuscan, you're as straightforward as you can possibly be. You worked alongside Julian Sim carrying water for the Camarilla when you were a fledgling. He recently tried to involve you in a number of schemes, but you've turned him down. Leto interrogates you with the precision and cunning, but you stick to the truth, and he's forced to yield after only a few minutes, convinced of your honesty. The Prince of Tuscan turns away from you to study a table littered with mementos, playbills, engine parts, a single cowboy boot, a Curon, a long curved knife still in its turquoise-studded sheath. He picks it up, testing its weight, and then says, "Tell me what you know about Ayla." Oh boy. A Banu Hakim elder. I recite historical facts and hope that throws Leto off the scent. Recite historical facts with smooth confidence, describing appearances by Ayla from the Crusades to the Great War, then tracing her lineage through Caleb Elijah Ahmed to Cain himself, if one believes such things. Leto is impressed and seems convinced that you knew about her chiefly through academic curiosity. We knew each other during the war, he says, and for a little time afterward. He points at the photo taken on the Spanish Riviera. What does she have to do with... You point vaguely towards the street outside, which Dove and Carlos are probably still watching with worried expressions as the couriers they await do not arrive. Soon, Prince Leto says. He draws the curved knife, studies the blade, then slides it back into its sheath. Then he steps forward so he's right in front of you. But first, I have a question for you, Neonate, and it's important that you answer me quickly and honestly. Do you know that Julian Sim consumed the soul of Ayla? Conflicting emotions crash through you. Some of them aren't your own. They're echoes of the elder you devoured alongside Julian. You remember that night. Julian's courage failed him. He encouraged you to finish the work he began, and you did. Julian fought her, and you found her and brought you to her, but he did not consume her. When I asked that you answered me quickly, Prince Leto says, I did not mean after a suitable period of stupefaction. I like you, Teddy, but that buys you less patience than you might imagine. I know, Julian, he wouldn't do that sort of thing. Also, technically true. But though I know it's because he flinched at the depravity of the act. Just as you start to speak, someone knocks on the door. Prince Leto ignores it, narrowing his eyes as he studies your face. You feel the power of his blood. You remember the years spent hiding, afraid that your aura would reveal your crime, but the stains on your soul has faded. After a moment, the Prince of Tuscan takes a step back, his expression puzzled. The door bangs again. What is it? We found the last courier, Dove's voice flat and hard. The Eagle Prince studies you for another moment, then opens his office door. She's dead, Prince Dove tells Leto as she enters. We found her car 2 blocks away. She crawled into one of the safe houses but couldn't reach the phone. So that's all of them, Prince Leto says. I'm here. Carlos is here. You couldn't even track down a single white, Leto snaps. Maybe we'll send Carlos in his Corolla if we have to, but not you. Did he talk? Dove asks, gesturing at you. She actually looks a little concerned for your well-being. Leto stares at you, his gray eyes shimmering, and his expression different from anything you've seen before. Thoughtful? Or he almost looks dazzled, like someone touched by the kindred mental arts. But who can influence an elder? He shakes his head. Julian didn't consume Ayla, the prince says. I'm sure of it. He stares right at you, and he doesn't figure it out. Or does he? His expression is unreadable, the contemplative gaze of a man who's been dead for over 2 centuries. Huh. Didn't expect that. So what do we do about Julian Sim? He's just some anarch, Leto says with a dismissive wave of his hand. But We still don't know where he's operating out of. Isn't that strange? He used to work out of Denver. Where's his lab now? Why don't we know? We have bigger problems, Leto says. We have to deal with the Second Inquisition before we end up like Dallas or Flagstaff. Well, if you're not going to destroy the sea neonate, you might as well put him to work, Dove says. What can I do for the Camarilla? Leto signals for Dove to close the double doors. He offers you a smile that's polite, if slightly strange. Even Dove's mannerisms have changed since your first meeting. It's a strange expression on a vampire, and you realize it means that they trust you. The Second Inquisition has been quiet for years, Leto says. You may have noticed the recent downturn in your business as a courier, Teddy. That's because many in the local Camarilla were convinced that they had contained the threat. They started sending emails again using phones. I did not. That's why the Viper is still standing, while the Elysiums in Flagstaff and Santa Fe and dozens of havens in Dallas are smoking ruins. At least we think they are. There aren't enough couriers left to tell us what happened. I can stop the Second Inquisition. I can hit them so hard that they leave us alone for half a century, but to do that, I need you to make 3 more runs over the course of the next month. These are strictly driving jobs. You'll pick things up or drop them off. I will pay you $5,000 per job, plus inducements for excellent service, of course. And you can deal with them in whatever way you see fit, but they all must be completed within, he looks at Dove, 26 nights. She doesn't elaborate. Before we discuss work, you'd know that the Second Inquisition tried to recruit me, right? I see everything that happens in my town, Teddy. Leto says. Dove looks shocked. Can we trust him to... We can trust him not to work for an organization dedicated to the eradication of our kindred, Prince Leto says. I'm willing to work, but I need more information. Like, wait the time. What happens when it's up? I'm glad we have an understanding, Leto says. And again, this is just driving. If you want to get into the trouble on the road, you're welcome to, of course. To answer your question, well, every invasion has a timeline, and I've gained access to some of Agent Donati's plans. She reaches Tuscan on December 18th, and if she has her way, my city will burn on the 19th. So where am I going, you ask? First, the Toreador d'Espine runs a nightclub in Dallas, the Prince of Tuscan tells you. A courier was supposed to arrive from there with information. He never made it. You need to succeed where your predecessor failed. Second, there is a ruined research facility just across the border in Utah. Jasper Knowles and NVIDIA Call were both involved in research there. They did a good job stripping the place, but Knowles left an emergency cache there in case the Inquisition should begin again. I need that cache. Finally, we need to destroy the Rimmerhouse. No! Dove screams. Other princes would twist their underlings' head off for that outburst, but Leto just raises a hand. His voice is stern, though, when he says, if that monster awakens, he'll march across the desert and draw the attention of every hunter in the United States. Teddy, when you and Julian Sim were fledglings, you provided the Rimmerhouse with prey. I need you to transport some scanning equipment to his domain so we can find him. I need you to be very clear about what I'm supposed to do around the Rimmerhouse. No offense, but elders are dangerous and unpredictable. Isn't Rimmerhouse technically a Methuselah? Dove asks. No, he's only a seventh generation. Rimmerhouse, Razalon, Androvigus, Melicote, Absimiliad, Zyla, Cain. At least if you believe those Russian Bruja, which I never will. Teddy, the Prince of Tuscan says, we need to know Rimmerhouse's movements if we are to destroy him before he rises again, because if he does, the Second Inquisition will focus 100% of their forces here. Right now, they're applying only a little more pressure than usual, and we're in shambles. And that Nosferatu is getting restless. I need you to transport a ground-penetrating radar kit to the desert where he roams. Some of my people will be waiting, but you don't need to stay. Just drop off the equipment at our base. They're deep in the desert, though, so be prepared for a rough road. What sort of research facility are we talking about? Are you familiar with Biosphere 2, the old research facility about an hour north of here? The prince asks. Leto, he's a fledgling. He only knows about the Pauly Shore movie, Dove says. There were several experiments in maintaining a self-contained ecosystem before Biosphere 2, which was more of a public relations stunt than anything else, Leto says, ignoring the Nosferatu. The first was conducted by the United States government in the early 1970s and in a collaboration with a consortium of oil and natural gas companies, once they understood the possibility of a climate apocalypse created by greenhouse gas emissions. They enticed documented immigrants with the promises of employment, then experimented upon them medically and psychologically, in a sealed environment as resources dwindled. I didn't learn anything. Nothing a good war wouldn't teach you about the limits of human endurance and depravity, Leto says. But the usurpers who crept into Biosphere Zero, as it is now called, learned a great deal. My old friend Jasper buried an emergency crash there full of his discoveries. Now it's an emergency. I want it. And a club in Dallas, the same Dallas that the Second Inquisition just tore through. You're not driving through a literal war zone, Leto says. It's not like the Second Inquisition has decided to martial law. They have struck at a handful of havens, mostly of fledglings who thought they could start using Facebook again. D'Espine, who kept her head down, D'Espine has kept her head down and remained safe. At least we think she has, Dove says. You just need to drive there, pick up a suitcase full of recent data, and get back. I think I'll start with Biosphere Zero. I'm curious about the research that went on there. Start wherever you like, Teddy. I'll have more information for you tomorrow night. Oh, and one last thing. Stay off the highways. The Second Inquisition's contacts in the regular government and police agencies are all over them. That'll slow you down, but it's only a 2-night trip instead of 1. That seems to be the signal for your departure. Dove rises and opens the door. You feel Prince Leto's gaze on your back as you leave, but you and he are separated by so many centuries that you don't know what it means. In that moment, you suddenly feel human again, and you don't like it. As you head back to the rooftop of Elysium, Carlos is waiting for you. Dove's retainer hands you a flyer and keeps walking without looking back, the way he'd hand off hush money. You study the flyer. Midnight Motor Meet. You've heard of them. They're all over the country, like cars and coffee, except there are more fist fights. It looks like they get together every few nights at different addresses. You scan the lists and commit it to memory, because if you want to drive with Dove, this is where you'll have to be. You return to your apartment and park the Integra. That day, you dream of sunrise. Well, at least we shan't die of thirst, Latos with Brayclaw says. I shall thank God for that. You are welcome to thank Mohammed. You roll your eyes, peel off your helmet, and enjoy surprising this gangrel whelp. I've seen women before, ma'am, just never so high up. You guide your emotions well. I look forward to seeing how you react to the sunrise. Hues of red and orange are spreading across the eastern sky. Ah, Dawn, that rosy-fingered bitch, Latour says, always spoiling an interesting conversation, I suppose. An interesting conversation. I suppose you have no secret to escape it, despite your great age and wisdom. Oh, my veins are dry, you say. Well, I can't refuse your shelter, even if we are enemies, the gangrel says, his ankles sink into the sand, then his hips. Come with me, he says, holding out his hand. You take it, and the sand wraps around both of you as you sink into the desert, just ahead of the sunrise. In the blackness of that tomb, you consider who you are. April 1917. This war is like all wars, and like all peace, they strong prey on the weak. They call it nature or inevitability, or the will of God, or they do not bother to justify it at all. But every night they feed. You know your own strength, and you know we must use it for something other than satisfying your basest needs. Sure, the strong must protect the weak. I dedicate myself to this principle and to guarding the most vulnerable from the depredations of monsters. I feel like that goes well with how he's been treating Vani. As the sun sets, you awaken burning with a new conviction. The strong must protect the weak. Even as you shake off Isla's memories, you remember her strange compassion. It's not a mortal's compassion, more like a god's, but it was clear and hard. You will act with mercy towards Canaanites and mortals alike. This is a harder path than cruelty, but it's the only way for you. Where to tonight? Well, the only place I'm going to tonight, gamers, is away from the stream. I thank you for joining me for as long as this. Oh goodness, hello, Pierce. I couldn't see the chat for the majority of the thing. Hello, I'm just now seeing this. If you're still in the chat, thank you very much for joining me. Hello. Wow, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you for joining. With that, I am going to take my leave. However, ciao. Thank you all for joining me. And I don't know. I need to come up with a catchphrase. Don't game too hard, gamers. Ciao.